This module is where Education Cloud starts feeling connected instead of scattered. Many people first experience it as a long list of apps, objects, and features. The real breakthrough comes when the list starts looking like one operating model. By the end of this section, you should be able to explain the app landscape, the shared learner identity, the process-specific records, and the platform services that holds the design together. Once that clicks, the rest of the course becomes much more easier to follow. The learner lifecycle is the architectural spine because the institution should not lose the story of the person every time responsibility moves to a different team. A prospect becomes an applicant becomes an enrolled learner. Later, that same person may show up in mentoring alumni or advancement scenarios. Different departments absolutely do different work, but the platform is strongest when those handoffs feel like one relationship instead of four disconnected systems. That is the lens to keep for rest of the course. Every app, every record, every automation, and every portal should help carry the learner story forward instead of forcing the institution to rebuild it from scratch. One of the best way to learn education cloud is to stop talking about apps as if they are just navigation label. Each workspace exists because a real institutional team has a real job to do. Admission owns the front door, academic operation owns the academic structure, student management and student success own the day-to-day learner picture and support motion. Student financials and digital experience layer help the institution stay cleaner, scalable, and usable. So instead of memorizing the launcher, let's ask a more useful question. Which team works here? What decision do they make here? And what learner moment are they responsible for? Once the product is explained that way, the architecture stop feeling random and start feeling very logical. This is one of the most important design ideas in the whole course. We need a shared identity layer and we also need working records that describe what is happening around that person right now. Those two different jobs and Education Cloud works better when we let them stay different. If I go back to the org, then and let me just search for Sophia. If I just do a Sophia search, so you will see Sophia is an applicant. Sophia is student also. Sophia is an alumni also. So this way, the same Sophia, there is a relationship whether when it is an applicant, it becomes a student, becomes an alumni. Then we have got program enrollment records tied to programs. Now, if I search for career, so we have programs like career services. So this is exact the pattern that matters. The person story remains recognizable while the process records carry the operational workload. When teams ignore that distinction, they usually try to force everything onto one page or one object. That makes page noisy, automation brittle, and reporting painful. Clean relationships are the real win here. So if I have a program by name career services, then I can see that Sophia as a student enrolled in this particular one and when it got enrolled also. Another common mistake is to think education cloud is only a data model. It is more accurate to think of it as an operating platform made up of record plus experience, guidance, workflow, and access design. That is why Experience Cloud matters because applicants, students, mentors, and alumni usually need their own front door. That is why OmniStudio matters because some journeys need a more guided experience than a standard layout can provide. That is why flows and action plans matter because institutional run on repeatable policy driven work. And that is why persona based security matters because the wrong access model can quietly break an otherwise good design. If you look into the org and if I want to see the Experience Cloud portal, I'll go to setup, digital experience, all sites. I can see trial org portal is there. Then similarly, if I look into the flows, I will see flows related to application also over here. Then if I look into permission set, for example, I look for education cloud. So I've got permission set related to education cloud also. So education cloud is clearly more than objects and tabs. The org already shows that broader implementation pattern. Now let's go back to presentation. We'll just walk through these steps as a lab just to make sure you can see the various records and what the object tabs are in this particular org. So let's take, for example, I go and search for an app or launch an app by name recruitment. If I go to individual applications, I can see an application over here. This is the application. It is by a particular student. It is by a particular applicant by name Sophia. Let's go back to that contact. This is that particular contact. And this is the person account who made two applicants. Then if I now open another app by name student, so we have got Sophia as a student also. So earlier I was showing Sophia as an applicant, then this Sophia became a student. So this is that particular one. Then let's go back and look into our programs. We have got career services. So over here we see Sophia has enrolled in this particular program. The whole idea is that you can see one shared learner story expressed through multiple lab surfaces and working records. This lab is where the architecture stops sounding abstract. You should physically be moving from one app to another. You are opening the learner records and see that platform is holding one institutional story together across different process records. Education Cloud is not one giant record and it is not one giant app. It is a connected design made up of shared identity, process specific records, and objects that support repeatable work across teams.